Hello, everyone. Hello, hello.
Hey.
Let me give you a welcome to Courageous Custody, Real Stories, Real Solutions, which is your weekly dose of empowerment and practical guidance, hosted by your dynamic duo
IFS practitioner and trauma recovery coach, Achara Tarfa.
and custody strategist and DV advocate, Renee Rodriguez.
Yes, I'm excited to be here again. So we understand the unique challenges that protective parents face in the courtroom. Our mission is to help you with the strategic thinking and the emotional support, both that you need to navigate this difficult journey with strength and resilience. So if you are a protective parent facing a seemingly impossible custody battle, you are not alone.
Every Thursday at 7 o'clock, we will go live on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, bringing you real stories. So you're going to hear stories about courageous parents who have walked in your shoes and emerged victorious in big ways and small. Their journeys will inspire you and offer valuable insights and expert advice. Get practical strategies from Atra, from me, to help you advocate for your children and manage your trauma as you go through your custody case.
Yeah, so don't miss out on getting your own insights from our conversations. We'd love for you to jump in with your own comments from those insights as we chat so we can hear from you too. So, again, you'll find us here every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And remember that courage is contagious, and together we can rewrite the narrative for protective parents.
So let's dive in.
Let's dive in.
So I think a lot of our listeners know that I am the creator of the Custody Blueprint.
Yes, and I am a trauma recovery coach that helps our clients that are part of and in the program of the Custody Blueprint.
And we never have given legal advice. We don't give therapy.
No. So if you're feeling triggered, we just encourage you to take care of yourself, maybe step away, get a drink of water, come back, and join us in the conversation.
Yes. So today's topic is becoming the ideal client. Our conversation today around this is how to become the ideal client with your lawyer, with your coach, and with yourself. If a protective parent doesn't know how to show up in a way that will allow the court to not just hear their story, but understand it, it can very much stand in the way of a parent's success in their custody case.
Yeah, just remembering back on our previous discussions, Renee, you talked about lawyers and, they are not taught strategy, right? They're taught tactics. And many of our clients, they come into this with, having these tactics and not very much strategy at all, because simply attorneys just don't get trained in it. And knowing why strategy is more important than a tactic that the lawyer is telling you about is key to helping you and supporting you in winning your case. So your strategy can really effectively help your lawyer. And what we can do is help. It's not going to hinder you in your case. What we do is coming along, developing a strategy individualized to your case, and we're helping support you to get the best outcome for you.
I think that when a lot of clients get advice from us, from their lawyers, from whoever they're working with for their case, sometimes I wonder how to get them to slow down, to not just hear what they want to be hearing, right? And what they think they're capable of doing, but hear the whole thing of what we're talking with them about, what we're explaining, so that they can start to see what their strategy needs to be. When we're working with clients, coming up with a strategy with them is something that I do want to do with them more than for them. But most of the time I'm doing it for our clients, partially because protective parents, it's like they're in the weeds. And of course, partially because I'm a strategist and they likely are not, I'm also coming in with a strategy, but repetition becomes important because they're so in it that it's hard to see anything except what keeps coming at them from their abusive co-parent with that post-separation abuse. So it feels like we have to keep repeating it, but that there's still a disconnect sometimes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, being in active trauma, which this is what they deal with on a regular basis, they're constantly in survival mode. And so it's really hard for them to zoom out and sort of see the bigger picture of how this strategy that they're being taught right now is going to affect the case sort of in the long run, right? This sort of long-term effect that we talk about often in the blueprint.
Mhm.
And that disconnect is, we're they're just caught up in that OFW that they've just received, right? That Our Family Wizard email that's triggering, or the fact that their kid just got sent to school without, the lunch or the proper clothing, or that it was picture day and they weren't dressed appropriately for picture day. And so they're just, these moms are dealing with all these things that are just triggering because all they're really focused on is taking care of their child and making sure that their child is best supported in the best possible way. So having them sort of slow down, right? When an onslaught, a deluge of just triggers and drama is coming at them on a repeated basis is really hard. So repetition is really important to help them stay grounded and to let them know that we've got them and that we're supporting them through this.
Yeah, I think the problem becomes that when they've got this deluge of things coming at them, when their co-parent, their abusive co-parent is up to shenanigans, as I like to say.
Do
Um,
some shenanigans.
Shenanigans. That's what they are. That's what they feel
That's what
like.
they're.
They're
Yeah.
shenanigans. It's a good way to kind of minimize them as much as we can, right?
Mhm,
But
mhm.
what ends up happening is, all the stuff that we've told our clients, all the stuff that the lawyer has told our clients goes out the window. And in that one moment that it goes out the window, in that one moment that an email or a text message becomes snarky, or that you've said something that's recorded on somebody's doorbell camera, it really hurts your case because of how easy it is to lose credibility in a case, right? And I
Yeah.
think that, when you're using your voice, it's like you come up, you want to be the ideal client, you want to do what you're supposed to do. But I think go with me on this, but I think we're also kind of fighting with this piece of the ideal victim. Right.
Oh, for
The
sure.
ideal victim is supposed to have been, coming home from church, wearing a long skirt, tights, and sneakers, making it difficult for somebody to assault her. The ideal victim helps out at the soup kitchen, was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. And so our clients, the clients are married to their verbal or physical attacker, right? They're with this person, they marry this person, and then the court has a hard time sort of separating that. I see. So there really isn't such a thing as a perfect victim anyway, but people still need to take on, protective parents still do need to take on the role of an ideal client so that we can show the court that the other parent is abusive behind closed doors, right? A
Yeah.
protective parent is a strong person, but they may not feel like it, but the strength is there, and the court takes that strength and kind of makes it seem like, well, you're here, you're using your voice, you're coming up with these accusations. It doesn't seem like you're somebody who would have been belittled or physically assaulted or abused, when the reality is that um, what happens behind closed doors is not at all the face of what's put on in public.
No, not at all. And what's being put on in public is what they were attracted to in the first place,
Right.
right? So,
Right,
um,
and we
you know,
smile, and
that is
the protective parents are just smiling. I mean, the pictures, when you look at, pictures of these people in their marriages, they're like, "I was miserable, but I didn't look at it on," when we were taking pictures at Disneyland or whatnot.
yeah, they just and so many of them we talk about disassociation a lot when in our small groups, and so many of them are just we're have the smile, but we're not there, right? Because and the only way to survive is to really just kind of fragment, separate. Okay, I didn't just have this huge argument with my partner, and now I'm showing up and taking this picture. It's we have to in order to get through what we're going through. You said when we're talking about becoming the ideal client, many of these women that we work with, they sort of come in and we're talking about helping them. And one of the reasons why we have to repeat ourselves with them is because there is that sort of disassociation piece, right? They've survived a lot of trauma. And so they check out a bit and we have to sort of bring them back in. And, you know, being able to bring them back in, we talk about being coachable and we talk about the three things that do make up being an ideal client. And so I was just wondering if you could really talk about those specifically, what those three things are.
Yeah, when we're looking at, what makes somebody a protective parent, what we know that they're going to be particularly good at really putting their case prep together and going in and very, very probably nailing it with their case is the three qualities of being coachable, resourceful, and industrious, meaning that they are willing to work harder than they've ever worked on anything in their lives.
So when you let's break that down. So when you say coachable, what exactly does that mean? And we'll take each one by one.
Yeah, it's sort of exactly what we've been talking about. It's really about the ability to be able to receive things and that they're able to move forward with the direction they're being given with action. Right. So it's they're able to do it and they're open to receiving it. That's really a big piece of it, is that they're open to receiving it.
And they're open to receive what? What does that mean?
Well, coaching, they're open to receive advice. I think clients have to be careful to not just get only what they want to hear. Like, I can't tell you how many clients we've got right now, and really always, who are just not happy with their lawyers. Right? And I feel like I'm constantly reminding people that you're never going to always be happy with your lawyer. You're going to go through 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lawyers if that's what you're looking for. There's no like Law and Order episode perfect lawyer. So they're still human beings. I think it's important to remember that even if you're dissatisfied with them, they're human beings. And what we really want from a lawyer is we want someone who can take everything off our plate and present it to the court in the right way. But that's not really how it works, which kind of leads to, I said coachable, I said resourceful. You have to be resourceful. Your lawyer is just one piece of your team. You got to have a therapist. You got to have the child therapist. I like for people to have a DV advocate, a domestic violence advocate as well. And obviously cases do better with a skilled coach. And then, that industrious piece ties into these things. They have to be willing to do the hard work. And that's really hard, because I think when people say they're willing to do the hard work, it's like, I will do anything for my child, which is true. But then when they sit down and they're rifling through the ugly text messages, the recordings of being attacked, all the documentation, and trying to put it together, we're trying to get them to put this stuff into the blueprint pieces to make it presentable. It's paralyzing, and they're reliving it. They find they can't quite bring themselves to dive back into reliving dark moments, trauma, and horrible moments. But that's part of the work too, unfortunately. I remember doing it myself. I mean, granted, the way that we put together a blueprint, when they're using our blueprint, the hope is then it's designed to make sure that it's almost like one last time for you to have to go through all of this crap, all of this documentation, all of these text messages, recordings, get it organized, and then it's there for you for whatever you need to do with it in the future. But when you're sitting down in front of it, it's, why would you want to relive, his attacks? Why would you want to relive, what happened at the school that day, the way he was treating you in front of the principal, whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's so hard. I mean, you mentioned that you remember that. I remember that too. And we talked about willing to do the work, and that's also individualized, right? It's like, what are we willing to sort of in our own nervous system be able to, okay, I won't necessarily make a big deal about this, but this I need to say something about. Like, so the work for us, as moms who've been through this it means different things to different people individually, but overall, the willing to do the work means sometimes maybe knowing that your child may not be given the same meal at that person's house than what you give at your house, right? Or it may not be, they may not be sent to school, like I said earlier, with the clothes that you just bought your child, right? It was going back to school. Maybe it's the fall, and maybe not sending that message and criticizing the other parent for not dressing them in the newest school clothes, and, saying things that we probably inside are just upset about and angry about. But willing to do the work also means that there are some things that you will just have to accept, as part of the process of being in an active custody case, right? Is it's that part of the work is because it's inside, right? It's inside. It's
Hmm.
really working with, okay, what is it that I can control in this situation inside of me? And what I see with clients and what I've even experienced with myself is that at times I wasn't willing to do that, right? I had to sort of met a wall. I had to come to this place of, okay, you know what? That really isn't that big of a deal in the long term. If I just let this happen and then really, let the court see that this happened to my kid and I didn't have a part in that. I know specifically, I'll share
Yeah.
just one instance where my kid wasn't being picked up. My kid just wasn't being picked up from
Mm.
school. And, I remember even going to a mediation meeting about it. And the mediator was the one who had the parent coordinator or whatnot was the one who was like, well, he's just going to have to not be picked up. And then the school will get involved. And then, authorities will be called. And that's just what will end up. Because I said, well, what happens? My kid is now left abandoned at school. And you're asking me to not go there and pick him up. That's really difficult as his mother to watch that. So a part of me didn't want to do that because I know my kid would just be left there, right? And feel bad or feel shamed or any of those things. So being part of doing the work and being willing to do the work in an active custody case is following the parental temporary order.
Mm.
If you have
Mhm.
a coordinator that's talking to you both, that's assigned by the court, being as cooperative as you can be, and within the boundaries as much as you can, right? As much as you can be. So those are my thoughts about willing to do the work. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, it's very similar. I mean, we talk a lot about how a parent has been so protective and they've so prevented their co-parent from doing the stupid stuff, the neglect, the abuse, that the lawyers are kind of like, we've really got nothing. Um, Not allowing the abuser to be responsible as a parent and showing where they are just not capable of doing that means that the lawyer has nothing to show the court. So the court will be kind of like, well, he seems like a fine, charming guy to me. When the reality is that, behind closed doors, they're a nightmare. They're neglectful. They're abusive. They're a million different things. And unfortunately, if you don't give your co-parent the room to show who they are, the courts believe that charming persona. And that can be really difficult because, as you say, your job as a protective parent is to protect your children. You would do anything for them. And so what becomes interesting is the best way to protect your child is to let your ex be who they are while you're under the courts. Helping them by stepping in doesn't help the courts see what the abuser is really like. And I think it's important to note that there's not a lot of recourse once a court has made a decision, once you've signed
Mm,
an agreement. It's pretty impossible to get them to modify that, to change that. There's this whole sort of sense of, oh, just go to court to modify something. And it sounds so simple, but it's like, no, it's pretty impossible. Actually, we have plenty of cases like those. It's an uphill battle. Those
right.
modifications are almost impossible, no matter how obvious they seem like they should be. It bothers me when court advisors say, let's just do this, just follow my advice because this is just temporary. Because it's not likely temporary. Once something is put down on paper in court, it's technically temporary, but you almost may as well consider it permanent. And so protecting your child then really becomes more of letting the smaller things happen in order to show what you're up against. Obviously, let me be very clear. If your children are in mortal danger, you have to do what you have to do, whether the court likes it or not. But underfed, underslept, homework not being done, late to school, isolating them, horrible things to happen. But we see what happens in the court. And so, the protective parents, moms or dads, just they need to keep documenting this stuff. That's what we tell them. You got to keep documenting it, but also talk with your lawyer about what to bring to the next court appearance, if not sooner, in an emergency motion, possibly.
Yeah, and you mentioned that whole temporary thing earlier, like it's just temporary or it's temporary. And so many attorneys, and I had one that said that to me. And that's part of that tactic that we were talking about, tactic versus strategy,
Mhm.
that we were mentioning earlier, because that's sort of like that tactic of, oh, it's just temporary, right? But it's really, it's maybe legally for right then and there, but long term that might actually not work for you later on. And I'm even like thinking about, like, let's just take phone calls, right? Like refusing to let the other parent have their phone call because either he's done it to you, or when he calls your kids aren't interested. And we see these parents and these moms just say, oh, well, I don't want to force my kid to be in this phone call. And so you don't want to put your kid through that. They don't want to call, and then you feel like you're participating in emotionally traumatizing your child because you're going to make them take that phone call or make them make that phone call. And so those are just some of the ways in which that's part of doing the work, is having that phone call. And even if the kid isn't interested and the dad can't stay interested, or dad can't participate or be engaged, or the kid hangs up or the dad hangs up, that's you're going to have to start just keeping track of all of that and just making sure that you document that. And that's part of your strategy on your timeline, and that's part of your strategy for setting yourself up to show the court, like, the person that you see actually is not the person that we deal with on a regular basis. Look at all these instances where this has actually happened. So not having that phone call is actually a lot worse. You don't have the evidence to show what happens when that phone call is made, and the things and the drama that comes into play when engaging in that phone call, or what happens in that conversation. So it is not going to be seen, or uh, is not going to see that as more of a moral injury, right? Or
Mhm.
not moral injury, a mortal injury. Like the court is
Mhm.
not going to, they're not going to go, oh, that's really horrible, that phone call thing. Yeah, that's really going to be damaging. That they don't think like that, right? Uh, They're going to see that as, oh, well, maybe that actually, that parental alienation narrative that this parent is saying, maybe there's some merit here, because look, she is not letting her child speak to
Yeah.
the other parent, and
Yeah.
we don't want to be part of that. So I think it's really helpful to understand when it comes to being coachable and being resourceful and doing the work. There's that bigger picture that's part of it. Yeah.
I think,
So
and
go ahead.
I was just gonna say we have, a commenter who is
Oh,
saying, what if your lawyer doesn't want to involve you and your hard work? And I think it's one of the things, I mean, and obviously we don't know the situation or anything, but a lot of lawyers talk about getting tired out by how much they're being contacted by their client, right? It's, we talk a lot about compartmentalizing what you're sending where. Again, I was the same way at first, but when you start in a custody case, you think, well, let me just get a lawyer and that's all you need. When in reality, you really do need that whole team, right? But a lot of lawyers talk about the fact that they keep getting a lot of emails that are kind of like, this happened and that happened and he did this and he's late and what do I do now? And they're getting a lot of these things because that's the only person that their client has. I think it's important that that's something you move to a friend or a coach or something like that. But if you have been emailing your lawyer a lot, that could be part of the reason that they are sort of stepping back from you. However, we have a lot of clients where their lawyers just don't want to partner with them. And part of the work that we're doing with them is we're trying to help them figure out, what does partnership with your lawyer look like for you with this lawyer, right? Sometimes I was just talking to a client today about the fact that she has court tomorrow, and a lot of court days this week, and hers is tomorrow. And I had told her, you know, partnership with you and your lawyer, because of who your lawyer is not you strongly standing up and saying, take these things. It's, hey, I put this together just to make it easier for me, and I think it's going to be, it kind of lays out, what's going on with their claims and what's going on with the evidence we've got against those claims, if this would be helpful to you. So a little bit deferential in some ways, just to get the job done, right? So you have to figure out what is going on with your lawyer. if you have a lawyer who is just not listening to you and going out on their own, then you have to repair that relationship. You have to sit and you have to say, what can I do to, you know, work with you better? I was hoping that you would review this. I was hoping you would allow me to see this before it went out. I was hoping you would do these things. And yeah, sometimes we get lawyers who say, I'm not going to pass everything by you before I send it out, which I call BS on, because it's kind of like, yeah, you are. Right? This is the person who knows best whether or not you're making a mistake, whether or not there's an error here. Right? And then, as the ideal client, what you don't want to do when they pass something by you before they send it on is rewrite the whole thing versus just give them some notes on what's not correct and what they might be thinking about. Right? So, without knowing anybody's situation, we can't say, but these are the major situations that usually come up when we get that question. So, I hope it's something that our listener will consider.
Yeah, I really hope so, because that emailing them over and over again, and then we find that our clients, we hear this a lot. They'll email because they're not getting a response. And so it's
Right.
like an email about not being responded to, and then another email. And then so that just adds to the, feelings of abandonment that our clients may already be experiencing from their trauma responses. And then the feelings of neglect that they already may be feeling. And it's just, all of that just really clouds and creates an inability to access, right? I talk about this a lot. Their prefrontal cortex, their frontal lobe, the part of us that lends clarity and logic and reasoning and all of that to us. And so when we're able to sort of separate that and just take a step back and zoom out and see the bigger picture and the long-term strategy that we're trying to go for here, it's really beneficial for our clients. Yeah. We can talk about the case study. We've got a few minutes.
Let's jump in. So we're going to talk about Giselle today, who is the CEO of a mid-sized public relations company. Her situation is a good one because we get this happening a lot. And I love how you talk about why that is. But first, let me talk about Giselle. So during the marriage, she was the breadwinner, but she was also left to do everything. She was working and bringing the money, but she was also the only one taking care of the children. She was doing everything, which she did. And she was doing it really well from all accounts. But he was physically abusive, financially abusive. He disregarded the kids and what they liked, what they wanted to do, and just basically their free will. And Giselle when she started working with us, she was on board with what we were telling her from the start. But like many of our clients in our various programs, she would do what we advised her to do, only up to a point. Then it was like she needed to release her voice, needed to just do or respond with something with an eagerness to demonstrate what good parenting looks like to her ex, right? But it was coming off as bad. An example was like getting the last word in emails, parenting for the other parent, telling her middle school age children to protect themselves and call her if they needed her. With our help, she was winning each court appearance. She was, but her journey was longer. It was more expensive. It was more difficult than necessary. We were doing cleanup here and there. And I remember my team checking in with you about Giselle to just see what you were seeing during your mindset coaching calls she was part of. And like I said, I just loved what you had to remind us about that.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought this case up because, oftentimes when we're working with women who are high performing, right? So we remember that she's CAO, right? She's this person that's in charge, a big boss in charge of this company. And so when we're working with her, that mindset of, oh yeah, I hear what you guys are saying, I'm going to do that, and then ends up doing what she wants to do anyways. That's because she's just so used to always making the decisions, being the solution person, making things that aren't working work. And granted, she was an expert in her field and what she did, but we're an expert in ours, right? And so helping her understand that part of her, when I work with our clients, I often bring in the internal family systems model, and we talk about it from a parts perspective and really earning the trust of that CEO mind, that CEO brain that she had. And just saying, hey, yeah, you're the boss here. You're the boss when it comes to doing these things. You know what's best for your kids. Um, and that's all great. But when it comes to strategy and helping you give yourself the best outcome in this active custody case, we're the experts here. And just like you would rely on your clients to, lean on you, that's what we're asking of you here. And really just befriending that part of her so it can become sort of on board with what's going, so that at the end, it doesn't do those reactive internal family system, we call them firefighter parts. There's a parts that are just really reactive that need to just sort of, in this case, get that last dig in, and just like you said, just mentioning parenting the other parent, or just, oh, here's how it's supposed to be done. And those really reactive parts that are all there just to protect her from really feeling that pain of what she was experiencing, which was feeling like she's done all this work to get her child set up in a particular way. And now she's got this time sharing thing that she has to do. And she's watched her children regress, and she felt like a failure. Her mom part was really much feeling like a failure. And so really just working with all of those parts in her, like, hey, boss, you got this, but we're the strategists here in this situation. Hey, firefighter, I know you're reactive and you want to give that jab and you want to say that last thing because what you care about is feeling better right now in the moment. And that's going to make you feel better, but that's not going to work towards your long-term strategy. And, oh, hey, mom part that feels like you failed. You actually haven't failed. Look at all the great things that you've done. And it's not about it's not about, failing your children. It's about fighting for your kids and really having clarity and not letting the drama of what you're dealing with on a daily basis affect your confidence, and just building her up and supporting her in those various ways and recognizing those different parts in her. That was a really great case, Renee.
Yeah. And I know that, when our team continued to work with her, she reacted well. She understood it. She almost relaxed into it. So I think it's, for anybody who is listening, that, this is the kind of thing you can do for yourself, right? I mean, any one of our clients can also do this for themselves. Naming the parts and that type of thing is it's an incredible thing to do.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I think we answered the question that it came in. Let's see if anyone else is sneaking anything in. So that's all for this week's episode of Courageous Custody. Before we go, thank you so much for joining us, whether live or on replay. We are so grateful to have helped in any way we may have. And Atra, you want to go over our great takeaways for this week?
Yeah. So today's episode was about becoming an ideal client, and becoming an ideal client means being coachable, right? Being coachable, willing to take the advice, having an openness towards that, being resourceful, not relying on just your attorney being the be all end all, but having a DV advocate, having a coach, having a friend that's a confidant, and really being industrious and willing to work harder than ever before, because you're going to be in an active custody case and it's going to require a lot of emotional labor and psychological labor from you, but with the support of a team like we have here at Best Foot Forward and the Custody Blueprint, it's designed to set you up for the best success possible.
Yeah, you want to find your people because the cases go on longer than you think they will.
Yeah, good point.
Next week, join us again at 7 p.m. Eastern time here. Like or follow or bookmark us so that you can get the notifications and not miss a thing, because what we're talking about might catch you just when you need it. And feel free to suggest topics you'd like us to cover as well. Don't forget to check the comments to get a free copy of the court appearance prep list. A lot of that you may know, but you don't want to mess up or miss anything. And you can go to thecustodyblueprint.com to learn about the different ways to get help in your case.
Wonderful. And leave your own comments about your experience with this topic and any topics you'd like to see discussed in the future. Wherever you're listening, remember you're not alone. And until next week, stay strong, stay informed, and keep fighting for what matters most.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.